Did she just cross the street? Was she here today? She was? Okay.
She's somewhere off somewhere. Who knows?
She did not come to my class secretary. I swear I saw her, and then like she never came.
They use the Roblox. They use the Roblox.
What?
They use Roblox toys. This is Marco Polo. This is Marco Polo thing now. Look. See Marco Polo. It's funny. Look, look at this lady here. So much evidence. I don't like it. It's so nice. I see it there.
I just grabbed my dog. Guess what? I cheat. Let me appreciate 1,000 potatoes on this day. Well, I will punch you in your mouth.
Dream come true.
And then, no, that's it. Hey, open it. Get Trevor.
You guys are scared. You
I like
probably
cook
should
man,
do
but I take it.
that.
This right there. I like for black and white time. I think you could make the other one. But that's how we do it.
I saw. It was so pretty.
Just wait.
Oh yeah, I put your chip and dipple in the counter fire.
Oh, okay, the one and then drying.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, why is it not ready?
Libby, you're not ice fat.
What?
That's ice fat.
Why would anyone make this?
You have an ice fat.
I'm just like,
Why do you need extra supply?
Hands hurt.
Two tons?
You have an ice fat. You have to do
Go to the office, ask for free eyes. Get eyes free. What breaks?
Well, I saw you play with that. Yeah. What was that? Caught crap. That's it. What?
sorry.
You didn't even know that.
Oh, you're just messing with me and this stuff? No, it's the real, the TV series is fun part.
I need some chocolate. I really do.
Aren't you messing with me?
You
can see it. Oh, yeah, I was messing with you.
I am on freaking time today, huh?
Congratulations. Oh, you got seconds. Man.
Who is drinking apple juice?
I don't drink that without you.
What? I mean, there's like aluminum foil apple juice containers on my floor.
You didn't get that on your side?
No, you blame me for it. I'm giving it up.
I gave you grapes.
Alright, dude, my bad.
Let me get, no, it's okay, I got it, because, you know, I mean, it is my mess apple.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Next time, can we walk it over
Yeah.
and throw it away? Thank you.
What is this?
You guys know if there's anything different about Mr. Wallace?
Probably thinking, how can someone who's already that handsome be even more handsome from day to day? Hey, Ernesto, does Mrs. Ludwig, do they have packets of ketchup down there?
Wow.
And H90, I what?
He's really scared of it until it's flying.
Get out. You go to the security desk.
He thinks you're a clown. Wear a hat.
Mr. Wallace? There's a wall sitting here. Oh, hell no.
Thanks, thanks Samantha. That's gonna help things.
Open the door.
Samantha, next time, do you think you can just let it go?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a lot more scary or less.
Yeah.
Think about how you lost feel. What if it didn't have a limit? Well, that's your dildo.
By the way, you guys are gonna need your books today, so open up your books to Where do we end? State legislatures, qualifications, sources. That's what we're doing. Well, you gotta have something to review though. Let's do a quick review since you asked for it. Andrew, turn around. Take out your book. Thank you. Tai Chi, quiet.
Loud.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Tyler, go to Barlow's.
What?
Go to Barlow's. No, don't go to Barlow's. Stay here. I want you here. Hey, Tyler, I'll start with you. How many members of the California State Senate?
I believe that is.
What is our count right now? Okay, listen, you two. I don't want to ask you again, okay? And I'm being serious. I don't want to see you guys touch each other. Stop the I don't give a crap who did what. Do not do that again. Am I clear?
I very much appreciate that.
Okay. Am I clear?
Yeah.
I'm getting sick and tired of dealing with like kindergartners when it comes to this stuff. So please stop. I've asked you over and over not to roughhouse. Now, I know you guys like to banter with each other. If it turns into roughhousing, I'm going to ask you not to banter. Don't put me in that situation. I don't want to have to do that. Okay? I'm trying to foster a healthy relationship. I want you two to start hanging out. Maybe you guys can start playing Dungeons and Dragons together. Did I tell you I joined a Dungeons and Dragons group? I made a staff. I had a wooden staff.
Did you actually?
I swear to God. I had a wooden staff, all of this stuff. I was going to make a wizard hat. I endured the ridicule of my daughter who kept saying, you know, Dad, aren't you kind of old for this stuff? And I joined it and it was like totally boring. And I was like, I thought we were going to like sit around and talk about Hobbit stuff, but. What did you do? What did we do? We like, you know, it took a long time to get your turn, and then you roll the dice, and then they present you with all these scenarios, and then you have to like, you know,
That was boring.
dude, it was like whatever, man. And I'm like, I thought we were gonna like geek out together.
What do you mean by geek out?
You know, if I gotta explain it to you, I just can't explain it to you. You know what I mean?
What, just do all sorts of fun stuff like imagination and stuff?
Nico, is your mom okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you mean by geek out, you mean do like fantastic epic battles and imagination?
Yeah, like, well, but, I mean, that's what we did, but it was like, it wasn't as, like, it was, I thought it would be, like, weirder. Like, people would say things like, I'm the wizard of the forest of Emeralda. And, you know, and it was like normal conversations, like people talking about their day in between stuff. I didn't come here to talk about my freaking day. I came here to like lose myself in a fantasy world with a bunch of geeks. I wanted to be part of that world.
I am the great mighty wizard of Sacramento! Behold, I can make these plastic figurines into real people! Real soldiers!
What did you
So you blurt out things like that on the run. You kept like, you know, sometimes it's so like accurate that I just can't like, what can I say to that? Okay.
Okay.
You guys are gonna need your notes. Take out your notes. Take out the thing that you started yesterday that has the terms and page numbers. Yes.
Is this Jurassic Park music?
No, it's not.
It wasn't.
I recently watched Jurassic Park.
It is.
Is it? I don't think it is.
I think it was.
Yeah, this is
Opera.
Jurassic Park. It's music.
Is it?
No.
He's being sarcastic.
It was not. I
It's
like
a
Jurassic
famous aria.
Why are you listening to such dramatic music?
Because I'm a dramatic person. Because I'm deep and I'm.
Ooh.
Wallace, you look weird in pants, just so you know.
I look weird in pants.
Yeah.
Do you want? Okay, so I got to tell you guys something yesterday. You know what happened yesterday? I'm with students and we're like taking a break from Like, you know, it was like 9:30 and we had to take a break. Remember they had the tours? So we walked out and I said, come on, let's take a break. So I'm with like 3 other students, all guys, you know, we go out there. And then I said, you know, you guys need to form a club. So one of the students, I thought it was really funny. He said, hey, we should form an awkward silence club.
Hey, we should do that now.
And I said, yeah, and then you guys could come into my room and you could all sit there and not talk to each other. And so and we were kind of laughing about it, and there were all these parents there, like
At 9:30 at night?
9:30 at night.
That was good morning.
Yeah, they were doing the parent tours, and there's all, you know, one of the students said, he goes, yeah, you know, it'd make it really awkward if you touched me, Mr. Wallace. And I'm sitting there and like, all these parents like look over, and I'm like, Jesus, of all the things to say
Oh my God.
in front of freaking touring 8th grade parents, like, and I looked at him, I go, and he goes, no, that's really awkward. Like, and I started laughing at it. Dude, this is a really awkward situation. You have no idea how freaking awkward this is right now. And like, I couldn't help but just laugh at the freaking, just the absurdity of it all. Thank you for,
You took attendance.
yes, I did.
Thank you.
No, thank you for taking attendance. Did you take attendance?
I'm
Did you hit submit?
I
Hit submit.
Submit.
There you go. Make sure I didn't make any mistakes. Because I have taken attendance before, not hit submit.
No.
Right, I
No,
know
I
too,
didn't.
and
Well,
you usually remind me.
Okay, so we ended yesterday, I believe, with, so real quick, how many members of the Senate, who did I ask? I asked Tyler, how many members?
Yesterday. We didn't have.
Monday, Tuesday. How many members in the U.S., I'm sorry, the California State Senate? And you're gonna get assembly members right after that. Go. 40, very good, assembly members. Libby. You don't know, Tai, you know how many assembly members in the California State Assembly? 40, no, that's the Senate. 80, very good. You remembered that. That's what you were going to say? I'm glad you didn't say it because I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
All right.
We close the door.
Whatever.
Yes.
Trevor, name one of the provisions of the California State Constitution. To do what? What does it provide for?
The,
Why don't you open up your book, turn to page 686 if you don't know. It's actually, yeah, 686. Guys, maybe you should all, why don't you have your book open? Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Me?
Yeah. You sit there with your mouth open attracting flies. I want you to get your book open.
You know what?
One provision. That means the rest of you should be looking at the provisions. Because I'm only asking him one. I might ask you guys what another provision is. And let's just do it in order.
basic principles.
Basic principles. Okay, and what does that mean? What do you think basic principles of the U.S. The California Constitution is? What would be a basic principle of our Constitution, of the U.S. Constitution? What is it there to ensure? Guys, look at me, please. Okay? So when you walk out here, it's really important, like this is a concern of mine, that you guys are not answering this. Now, either you don't know it or you don't want to talk, but I want to make sure you guys hear. Will you please look at me? It is here to ensure processes, that we have processes in place so our government can function. And it is here to ensure freedoms. Got it? And then also structure. It provides for structure, processes, and freedoms / rights. Got it? You guys should understand that as that. Those are the basic principles of our Constitution. Okay? That's why we look to our Constitution when you guys say, hey, Wallace, how old does a president have to be? And I say, well, refer to the article that addresses the executive branch. You guys remember which article that is? There you go. Well, okay. There you go. Article 2. And it'll list it in there. So that's part of structure. And then if you say, well, how do we create a 28th Amendment? So I would say, we'll go to the Constitution and look at the article that addresses amendments. You guys remember what what article that is? I don't either. So you go to that article, but there's one in there specifically that addresses the amendment process. So it's structure, processes, and basic rights and freedoms. Nico, what is a constitution? What are the basic principles of the California Constitution? What does it provide for? Three things. What are they? Structure, processes, rights, and freedoms. Andrew, what are the basic principles of our California Constitution? I mean, and if I screw up and say U.S. Constitution, it's the same thing. A constitution and a democracy should provide for what basic three things? Structure, processes, and freedoms. Rights and freedoms. Rights/freedoms. Okay? Xavier,
Yes.
three basic principles of our state constitution.
Basic principle.
Don't look at there, I just told you what they are. What are
Governmental structure, governmental process, and constitutional change.
they? Okay, constitutional change. So you're quoting from the book. Basic rights and freedoms. Okay? Alright. We're going to move on from there. So that's provision number one. Ernesto, what's the second provision of our state constitution? Protection of civil rights. Excellent job. What's number three, Devin?
Governmental.
Very good. What's number four? Samantha? Do you know where we are? Do you know what we're doing? Yes or no? Nope? Okay, in the future, why don't you stop me and ask Mr. Wallace, what are we doing? So when I'm asking what's number two, what's number three, what's number four, now I told you guys, I gave you a warning. You guys should be looking at page 686 because I might call on you to tell us what one of the provisions are. So if people start talking, if I say number three and someone's answering it, and you're thinking, where are they coming up with number three? Maybe you should stop Samantha and say, Mr. Wallace, where are we right now? What are you talking about? Okay? So that when I ask you what's number four, you have something to say. Okay, 686. See where it says the California Constitution today. See how it's numbered. These are the provisions. This is what the Constitution provides for. This ensures all citizens, all visitors in the state of California, this is what they can count on, all right? What's number four? What's the fourth provision? And these are general, and these are all states have these.
But it's governmental powers.
These are our powers. Okay? And that falls under the umbrella of structure. What's number five? Andrew.
Constitutional change.
Constitutional change. What's number six, Tyler? Miscellaneous. Okay, so there's other things that they can throw. So sometimes, change sometimes happens so fast that there's a provision that our Constitution is such that it's fluid enough that if we need to do something, if the government needs to do something, they can do it, whatever that something is. Okay? One thing, like a change might be any powers or decision making, say, concerning new technology. You know, is California the epicenter of electronic technology as far as domestic production? Say yes, right? Where is that controlled? What's the epicenter when I say that? What's the middle of all of this? The industrial revolution of computers and electronics. Trevor, where would this be? Why am I saying California is? What am I talking about? What area specifically? The Silicon Valley. Okay? San Jose, the Silicon Valley. Okay? So there might be things like what's a new technology that could have a profound impact, hell, on the rest of the country, but definitely on California's economy. And it's come out of the Silicon Valley.
Self-driving cars.
Self-driving cars could have a profound impact. I saw yet another piece of data This is a piece of data that no president, Donald Trump, Obama, any future presidents want to deal with. The data suggests that over the next 25 years, there could be 83 million people out of jobs, or no, 83 million jobs might give way to technology. That's staggering, right? So I imagine our government might have to evolve with that reality. Maybe. Hope it doesn't happen. I hope they're wrong. You know? But if it does, man, that could create, I mean, imagine that in this country. 83 million jobs disappearing.
Well, that's about over half of the labor force.
Okay?
But then you have to take into consideration the death rate too. I mean, the baby boomers are dying. They're in their 60s, mid-60s. 25 years from now, a lot of our population will be gone. So, I mean,
What's our growth rate?
I don't think it's that good right now.
Okay. Is it negative?
I don't know. I mean,
And is it negative to the degree that we're not going to feel the effects of 83 million missing jobs? I mean, I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
That's a lot of jobs.
There's a lot of jobs.
Well, what about we can initiate another baby boom?
You want to initiate
Why?
another
There's
baby
gonna be
boom?
more people out of work.
You know, we can initiate another baby boom.
Well, okay, so when I say, so that's one,
And that would be in the automotive industry.
this is in the automotive industry? No.
Different industries.
No, yeah, many different industries.
Automation.
You know, they have, now they conduct brain and heart surgery with computers now, right?
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're human controlled.
Yeah.
They're computer assisted human controlled.
Right, right. I mean, I don't know, like teaching jobs might disappear, right? You don't need to, what if there was a screen and instead of me, there was like some Harvard professor who's a great lecturer, fascinating.
Like Apex.
Is there a Harvard professor teaching people in Apex?
I don't think so.
There's a Harvard professor teaching students in Apex?
That's a simple yes or no question.
Oh, come
Yes
on.
or no? You don't know? Then why are you saying like Apex?
I'm gonna miss.
I don't know.
I'm gonna miss your teaching job, Mr. Wallace.
No, I'm not saying it's gonna go, I'm just saying it could go. This is one of the, you know, like right now, because of Apex, students can take classes online. My son wants to finish high school early, he wants to take classes online. He says, well, what do you think of that? I said, I think that's a terrible idea, and I think you're gonna miss a lot of socialization skills that you get through sitting in a class with other people, having teachers annoy you, or inspire you, or whatever it is they do with you, right? And I said, and then you're gonna have to deal with that. How do you deal with it? That's how you learn to socialize. English. He says, well, I just read a book and answer the questions. That's what we do in class anyway. I said, well, that's STEP. You guys should be discussing ideas. They should be challenging you with, you know, but if it's the kind of classes where most of the classrooms, they aren't doing it, then I don't see why you wouldn't just watch a video and answer questions from the computer, right?
Oh, come on. I like challenging.
Okay.
United States birth rate is at record.
Well, what is it? Is it negative? That was the question. And is it enough to offset 83 million lost jobs? Potentially, guys.
The computer's not going to give me that. How can computers be so great?
Well, what is the birth rate?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say, the birth rate is
Number
okay.
of births. Okay. U.S. number of births.
Not the number of births, what is the birth rate?
12.4 per thousand people.
12 so has it changed? So is our population
is it at
growing?
historic low?
But are we at a negative growth rate?
Well,
That's the question. We'll come back to it. If you find that, please let me know.
Oh, please do not be negative.
a negative growth rate?
Yes.
Because, well, with immigration, we're not. Because that's always going to be happening.
So
So more people.
what is our, so regardless, I mean, well, what is our growth rate right now?
Rate. Okay, it's got it for 2016.
Okay, what was it for 2016?
1.6.
Plus
annual
or negative?
Just says 1.6%. There's graphs.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's take the worst case scenario.
Grown.
Let's go 2%. 2%. Let's take 2% of, I believe our population is what? 600 million? Is that the US? 500 million?
Moved to the 600s.
What is it, 300 million?
And
About 300, so a quarter of a billion. So what's 2% of a quarter of a billion? God, we should be doing this, and you guys are getting a taste of economics right now.
5 million.
5 billion, okay? So if we continue, so let's just do this. If we continue to lose 5 million people per year, over the next 10 years, how many people is that? 50 million. So as long as like the worst case scenarios doesn't happen in the next decade, you know, if we lose 83 million jobs, but we only lose 50 million people, there's still a whole lot of jobs missing and a whole lot of people out there. Right? Now, when I bring this stuff up and you said, oh, don't let it be negative, here's the thing. One of the things that prognosticators would say is, so those are the jobs right now that exist that we might lose, but what are the jobs that could be created with new technology? You guys following me?
Yes.
So it's not totally hopeless, right? So a lot of these things we don't know. Like there's mathematical models. So a buddy of mine is a mathematical modeler, and here's what he does. He predicts. He predicts things. But those things aren't absolute. So they're theoretical, right? But they look at, okay, here's a theory and it's based on, here's how things usually go. So if these things happen, and the reason why we need to know this is we need to be logistically ready for it. We need to be prepared. So the government, that's why the miscellaneous thing exists in our Constitution. That's one way the government can prepare. Okay. Legislator in California. No, this is Il Don Immobile. You know this song?
Very
No?
well-known song.
Yeah. Hello.
Austin.
Is that immediate?
When convenient.
All right, guys, turn to 689, please. Let's turn to 689, Trevor. I didn't know that.
Actually, I wasn't.
I didn't think you were. But I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I shouldn't have. So I just learned a lesson. Okay. 689. Okay? So let's talk legislature. What is minimum qualification? Age qualification, Devin? If you want to be a legislator here in the state of California, either work for the Senate or the Assembly, how old must you be? 20? Nope. How old must you be? Yes.
18.
18. You guys can do it right now, those of you who are 18, possibly.
Well,
Okay?
you need to be like.
What's a residential qualification?
Well, you need to be a legal, a U.S. citizen and a legal resident of California.
For how many years? Okay, that's the 3-year rule. When I say the 1-year rule, Libby, what am I talking about? What's the 1-year rule? So you need to be a resident of the state of California for at least 3 years. What's the 1-year rule? What does that mean for a state legislator? Or a state someone who wants to be a state legislator? And if she can't answer it, but she will, I'm gonna kick it to Trevor. Be ready,
I already know
Trevor.
the answer. I was thinking about shouting it out.
Thank you for not shouting it out. You know it? Yeah? So if she can't answer, I'm gonna have you two Rochambeau. You can't answer it? Okay. So let's not give up, right? So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna turn to page 689, and it says the state legislators. It says qualifications, okay? So I'm gonna read this for you guys, and when I'm done reading it, Libby, I want you to yell out the answer if it jumps out at you after I read it. So listen up. Your eyes should be on 689 following along. Every state's constitution sets out formal requirements of age, citizenship, and residence for legislators. In California, legislators in both the Assembly and the Senate must be at least 18 years old and qualified to vote. They must have been a United States citizen and a legal resident of California for at least 3 years, and a legal residence of their voting district for at least 1 year preceding the election. Anything you want to yell out, Libby? What is the 1 year law?
I don't think it's actually anything.
So Libby, here's how it works, okay? Let's say you wanted to, when you turn 18, you want to become a legislator, okay? Well, the question is this. Are you a U.S. citizen and registered to vote? Let's say you say yes to that. Then the question becomes, have you been a resident of the state of California for at least 3 years? You say yes to this. Now, the question is, do they have to be 3 consecutive years? Our Constitution doesn't say whether or not, well, I would have to look at our Constitution. It doesn't spell it out here specifically. The U.S. Constitution does, but we're not running for the U.S. Senate, okay? I do not think they have to be 3 consecutive years. However, let's say you're running for this district, you need to have been a resident of this district, the district you are running for at least 1 year prior to becoming elected. Okay? So that's the 1 year. So it's living in the district for which you want to be elected 1 year prior to running for office. Alright?
Alright.
Okay, so those are the qualifications. What are the compensation? For that, you're going to have to turn the page. 690. So the compensation runs kind of a spectrum of salaries here. Okay? So where does it start, guys? You know what I mean by that? Tai, you know what I mean by that? Did you hear my question?
No.
Are you not paying attention to me?
I am.
But you didn't hear my question.
Yep.
Okay. On page 690, covers compensation. So I said our compensation runs a spectrum of salaries. Okay, there's a low end and there's a high end. Where does it basically start?
200
Okay, as low as what?
a year.
Yeah, be careful. That $200, does that apply to California?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to read something to you. If you guys look at compensation, could you put that away, please? Thank you.
There's 49 states.
Okay, the other 49 states, a handful of states pay, this is second paragraph under the section on compensation. This is where you guys want to be careful, Libby, because you don't want to see a number and then just assume we're talking about California. Okay? So when you skim things, make sure you're picking up on keywords. Okay? Right, job.
200 a year.
200, well, for decades now, New Hampshire has paid the members of its general court only $200 a year. And a handful of states pay their lawmakers less than $20,000 a year, but at most the salary figure is between $25,000 to $50,000 a year. Okay? So here's the key thing, paragraph 3. California's legislators are the best paid in the nation. They now receive $110,800 a year and an expense allowance of $153 for each day of the legislature is in session. And we know, how long do our sessions last?
2 years.
Open 2 years. It's an open 2-year session. That can be longer if who calls for a special session? The governor, not the president. We're not talking about the U.S. legislature or the U.S. Congress. We're talking about California legislature. So the governor, like the president, has a special power to call for a special session because the governor in California is the chief executive, just like the president is the chief executor for the United States. Okay? That doesn't mean they have absolute power, but one of their powers is that they can call for a special session. Okay, so let's talk terms now. How long is a term for a senator in the state of California, Andrew? That's on page 690.
4 years.
4 years. Okay, what if I tell you you're wrong? Am I right?
No.
2 years.
Are you changing it? Let me read this. You think that maybe? Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding at all.
Well, why don't you look at the book, 690, under, I just said, it's on 690. You see that big blue words called terms? In California, senators are elected to serve a term of 4 years. Thank you, Tai Tai. The Constitution limits senators to 2 terms. So how many years total can a senator serve for the state of California? Ernesto. Total. So if you run for the Senate in the state of California, your max number of times for your max number of years, what is it in total?
8.
Boom. Nico, how many senators serve in the state of California? What's that?
40.
Excellent. Members of the assembly are elected for 2-year terms, and they may serve a maximum of 3 terms. Devin, how long can an assembly member serve for the state of California? What's the maximum number of years? Based on their terms and their term limits. They get 3 terms, and 1 term is equal to 2 years. That would be 6 years, right? 6 years max, right? Makes sense? Okay. Session we already covered. Xavier, how long is a session in the state of California's assembly?
Continuous 2 years.
It is a continuous 2-year session. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to talk, what we went over yesterday was the legislative process. We talked about sources of bills, right? I'm sorry, I said yesterday, I mean Tuesday. Sources of bills and direct legislation. Okay, we talked about source of bills. You guys remember what is the main source of bills, guys? Forget about the main source. What is one source of bills? What is the so-called third house of the California Assembly? Trevor, what's the third house? What does that consist of?
It consists of the party people, what do they call them? Can't remember what they're called.
L word.
Something
You know?
actually part of the government.
Lobbyists. It's the lobbyists in California who are considered the third house of the California Assembly. What are other sources of bills? Anybody? No. Well, okay. Yes. Obviously the legislatures, the legislators themselves. Assembly members, Senate, yes?
What lawmakers were they?
The lawmakers? Well, they are the lawmakers. You know, here's the thing. They are the sources of all bills. The governor and the assembly. There is no other source. So when we talk about these other sources, what we're talking about is really who are the people who can influence these sources. And in that way, they're indirectly sources. The public, very good. The public sector, the private sector, and also governmental agencies. Those are the easy answers. Okay? So that's on page 693. You see where it says sources of bills? It says the large number of bills come from public sources, from officers and agencies of the state. Okay, now I want to talk about direct legislation. We didn't do this last time, so we're going to read this together, and then I'll end with this. Okay, so this is going to be another bullet point up here. Obviously, these are the things you guys need to know for your notes. So on your notes, how come you guys don't have your notes up? Didn't I tell you guys to take out your notes? Are you trying to tick me off right now?
Howard, we're doing good, Mr. Wallace.
You guys are actually doing really well. That's 693. Is that right? Yeah, 693. So write this down, guys. Sources of bills, direct legislation, if you don't have it already, 693. Then this way, when I say, hey, go home and study, you'll have all these terms, and then you'll have the page numbers, and then you don't have to write this stuff down. And then what you turn in for your homework is you hand me the page that has the terms and the page numbers on it. Okay? Now, if you don't go home and study any of that stuff, you're probably going to fail the final. It's not going to be an easy final. It's going to be a lot more detailed than the midterm. Just to let you guys know. Okay? Cool. The California Constitution allows voters to take part directly in law making. Voters, that's the public. That's you guys, us. We. This is on 693. Devin. Oh, you're writing. I'm not going to ask you. Will you read the second sentence, please?
Okay.
693. Under direct legislation. Second sentence. The main.
I'm on the page and I'm a little after like which sentence.
Number 2. Right there, the main.
The main vehicles for this legislation are the initiative and the referendum.
The initiative and the referendum. Those are the main vehicles for laws here in this state. Okay? So we want to pass an initiative or a referendum. Number 1, the initiative. So what I want you guys to know are what are the two vehicles or what are the two processes, the initiative and the referendum. Know those terms. And those are that's direct legislation. Again, Nico, what does legislation mean? What do legislators do? What does the legislative branch do? Boom. Which means what? These bills become what? They become laws. They make laws. Laws and policies. Okay? I use the term policies because some people think that laws are tied to, like, crime, justice. It's not about that. The policy becomes a law. So it's laws/policies. Okay? The initiative. Through the initiative process, voters in California can propose constitutional amendments and they can also propose ordinary statutes. California uses the more common direct initiative rather than the little used indirect initiative. The state's initiative proposals therefore go directly to the ballot rather than indirectly through the legislature. Okay? So we, the people in the state of California, have this power called the initiative. All right? So usually there's some kind of interest group, and maybe locally there's, like, say, a neighborhood who wants to get an initiative passed, and they can force the issue and make. Now, the law is based on the vote, and as long as it's not unconstitutional, that is unconstitutional to the California Constitution, and of course, what could override the California Constitution at any time? No. The president does not have the power to do it. There's only one thing that has the power to do it. What is it? No. The Constitution. And if someone wants to challenge it, say the president wants to challenge something that's going on in California, or California wants to challenge something that the president imposes upon them, or any other body, who listens to it? Don't say the government. Be specific. Who might, I should say, who might listen to it? And then who would pass down a decision which then might force the government to decide. No. Well, okay, wait a minute. I like that you did that. What does SCC stand for?
I said FCC.
Oh, the FCC? Dude, I'm gonna kick you. The Supreme Court. I thought you said the SCC because we had up there Supreme Court cases. So I was gonna remove one of the C's. The Supreme Court would listen to this. And why would they listen to it, Ernesto? Because what would they base their decision on? Whether or not California, the government, or the citizens of California can or can't do something. They're gonna base it on what? Their decision. What is their, very good, what is their decision based upon? Do they make them up because my opinion? Because my heart tells me this?
Constitution.
Is you? Fair enough. I did ask Ernesto, though. Did you not hear me ask him?
No.
You did hear me ask him?
Well, no.
Not really, okay. The Constitution, Ernesto. So what the Supreme Court is supposed to do is what, Tyler? They're gonna listen to the case, and what are they gonna do?
I'm gonna ask you what the Constitution.
Yeah, they're gonna interpret the Constitution. They're gonna analyze the law, and then interpret whether or not the Constitution, so, you know, hey guys, rarely does the Constitution, except maybe in the case of some amendments, rarely is it ever really specific. So it does require an interpretation. And this is why it's so important for the various parties that they either have someone who's going to have a liberal interpretation or a conservative interpretation, or maybe even a centrist interpretation. Okay? What are you doing right now? Would you stop doing that?
Okay.
Okay. And then the other legislative type of legislation is the referendum. Devin, would you read the referendum, please? The first two sentences. It's on 693, folks.
A referendum is a process by which a legislative measure is referred to the state's voters for final approval or rejection. California has both mandatory and popular referendums.
Referendums. Mandatory referendums requires that the legislature refer a measure to the voters. In California, measures that result in a mandatory referendum include proposed constitutional amendments and the borrowing of money. Under the popular referendum, take it away, Trevor.
I don't know where we are.
Okay. In the future, if I'm reading, and you can safely assume that I expect you guys to be reading, and you don't know where we are, like I told Samantha, could you please stop me and ask where we are? Thank you. We're on page 693, okay? And we're on the last paragraph on 693. It begins under the popular referendum. And I read that part.
The people may demand via petition that a statute passed by the California legislature be referred to them for final action. Popular referendums are rare, and most attempts to use them fail, usually for lack of signatures on the petition.
Thank you. We'll talk about some more about this stuff tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Please stack the books nicely. That ain't nice. Can you go back and straighten that out, please? That was your book. You know what? Thank you, Ernesto. I don't know what I did to deserve this today, but you are treating me really well. Give me a fist bump. Thank you. I appreciate that. Bye, Trevor.
Bye.
I think we got a whole class that woke up on the wrong side of the bed today.
I think you're a little too normal today. Yeah,
Just trying to get some work done today.
very much work.